Good afternoon, everyone. This is Chase for us all. I got my glasses on because we're going to go into some technical stuff in here. We're going to be talking about the last class matches, the grand finale, and how it was really fucked up. We're going to go into why it was fun. There was definitely some fun stuff going into this last one, and how Gumi really dropped the ball on it, and my opinions on it. And we're also going to go into a big class match analysis on this last one that we did. I think I had over 80 people or something like that sign up and put in their team that they put in, and I really appreciate it. It helps figure out what people use in this last class match. Maybe we can make some predictions of what the next one is, or we can kind of see like what people are using and learn from, like, based on what the class match gave us, what people are using. So let's get into that. Okay, so today we're going to be looking at class match 11, and you see here I have Corwell, who is crying. I appreciate the guy who made this on Reddit. It is definitely representative of how this is a very bad class match setup, considering it was the grand finale. Talking about my results, I don't want to put myself there as like, oh, if I tried harder I would have been better. I think I just didn't understand the game until recently, and that's why I highlighted these last few to show like I've gotten better as I played this game. Like, I'm pretty middling at the beginning, and then I actually get to where I'm almost in the top 100. And that last one I could have actually made top 100, and I'll get into that. It really hurts because this is part of the reason why a lot of people are upset about class matches. So this was the composition that I used. This was not my day one composition. When I first hit it, I went 1-4. And so I was like, wow, my team sucks. I need to fix something immediately. And so I went with this one, which had a lot of charm, a lot of power, basically would be able to take any type of team on. I only lost to one type of team, really, that completely shut me out. The rest of them I could say I lost to positioning or not thinking about it ahead of like what I could have done. And that was Prodigy's team. I think Longtime Twitch also used it as well. And they basically used a Gilgamesh, UR Zazan, and normal Zazan team, where they had charm protection, and then they also had Keenblade and Quicken. And so by doing that, it prevented me from being able to buff myself. I couldn't charm them, and the ability that Gilgamesh has gives magic resistance, so I was pretty much like dead in the water to be able to even do something about it. But this team was really good against pretty much any other team, even with the Corwell. Like, my team was able to do something about it. Even if 2B was on there, I had no issues. Even if Yuna was there, I had no issues. So this was a really fun team to play with, and is possible maybe to be even used in the next one. But here's kind of like the debacle that came with doing this recent class match, is that the season was cut short in a sense due to maintenance. There were some hours that were taken away, but this was planned in a sense. Like, we had a 3-day advancement to know that, hey, we're not going to have window 3 happening, so you should probably do it in window 1 or 2 for class matches. And so this wasn't a big deal, but it was a little annoying because we never actually had it before where there was maintenance and class matches going on at the same time. Class matches typically happen after raid, which is why we saw class matches after the last raid we did. And unfortunately, I think maybe that was not the best idea, because it actually cut into what was supposed to be the grand finale. And if you actually go into what I said in the next one, where it says only played 35 matches, there was a notice that was in very small print, you could say, very unexpected, was that they said that they're only going to do class matches up until the second window of Wednesday. And this caused a lot of issues, because if you go into the live PvP Discord where this was actually talked about, they could not complete their matches because they're workers. A lot of the people that play this game, at least in America, live on the East Coast. And living on the East Coast means that you do not get off work until about 5 o'clock, which is about when you can do your class matches. And so they could not complete their class matches, and a lot of people didn't actually realize that it was being cut short. And so for me as well, I was getting ready to stream and do these class matches, and they were not there. And I only played 35. So getting a rank of 148 is goddamn good for missing 5 of my matches. I could have easily made top 100 if I had done it, because given my team's record, I never went less than 4-1, and that would have definitely got me there to get the title that they did, and which is actually another issue, because the titles were only representative of the last class match you did. It was not representative of your total class match score. So your total class match score did not matter of getting the new titles that came out. So how is this a grand class match finale? That is what boggles my mind and why there's a debacle here, or an issue. But anyways, this class matches were fun. If you take away all the shit that happened, it was fun. You got to fight against Quicken teams, and I had counters for Quicken teams. And I think that's because in today's day and age, you can actually survive a few more hits now. And so you can actually create a team that can fight against teams that double Quicken or Quicken and take them out. So going into the actual stats, let's go into some of the stuff that was interesting to look at. I gathered these stats from people who were willing to put their team, technically unwilling as well. I did fight some people and grabbed their teams and put it in, and so did Lego Pants and a few others. I thank you for that. I basically grabbed that information and then found out that most of the people that put their information in were mostly Diamond Master players. And I also, if I maybe need to think about this for next time, I did allow up to 2 separate team comps to be used, so people did have multiple teams that they put in, and it will skew towards Diamond Master. So I think in the future I may ask for your finished ranking and then aggregate based off of that. So you got to take this with a grain of salt when you look at what kind of players that you're seeing between auto and manual, etc. But it's definitely good to see what people are using and then what people maybe use to counter against it. You see what people's thought processes are in the element breakdown, which I also have. Okay, so going into the player base, take this with a grain of salt. I had over 50% being auto and a little bit less than 50% being manual. This makes sense given where I did allocate the information. I grabbed it from Dr. Diggs Discord, who has a lot of auto players. I grabbed it from the live PvP Discord, which has a lot of non-auto manual players. And then we also have people like Orange J, who has a little bit of mix. So you can kind of see where the 50-50 split comes from. But if I had to redo this and actually think of what was the actual percentages, I would say 78% would be auto and 30% is manual. I think that is a more representative value. I didn't get a chance to actually go through it because then I'd have to figure out which one were the duplicates, and I didn't want to deal with that this time. So I'll look into that in the future to say okay, what are the real numbers here? But I think we have a 70-30 split is the actual number, and who actually put into the report, because it's mostly Diamond Master players, it was about 50-50. And maybe there is where we could see the silver lining, that maybe the Diamond Master people or above are players that are about 50-50. If we go into who were the top units used between manual and auto, we see that Phoebe was number 1, just pretty much hands down, except for where Black Rose Helena was used a lot for auto use. And this makes sense because Phoebe is a low-cost unit, very good in manual with Quicken. It was very obvious that this unit was going to be used even before I posted these graphical results. But I guess what you could see is surprising is that Helena is the most used in auto. Well, yes, and not so much in manual. And this is probably because Black Rose Helena is a 100 cost unit, and in manual she's really good. But because of that cost, you could probably put someone else that does a little bit more magical damage or something else to deal with the units that you're having issues with. Like 2B is an example of a unit that is weak against magic, and maybe Black Rose Helena is really good, but maybe typically that's not the best unit to use. You could probably use someone else that is an ice unit, such as Sweetheart Celir. Very hard to say. You don't even see here in the top 10. But yeah, that's a potential unit they could have used, or some other ice unit that I saw like Gilgamesh. There were definitely other units to use. But Black Rose Helena was definitely used a lot in auto, and this is clearly because she's super easy to use and pairs well with Dwayne. So if you put Black Rose Helena and Dwayne together in auto, and you see it here that they were quite used a lot in auto, it helps pair them. They pair together really, really well. And you can put in a weak unit such as regular Zazan, who then makes that team basically, either you charm the unit on auto or you use Keen Blade. Like, there are such good uses with regular Zazan. That's why you see him being used as the third most unit in the game. You also see like 2B was used. This was because UR Zazan was a threat in the last class match, and 2B was a supposed counter, which actually is not the case. It's very difficult to use 2B against UR Zazan. I don't think he's a true counter. I think when we go into the next one where Tifa exists, then maybe we could see some Tifa 2B shenanigans where UR Zazan's going to have quite a bit of an issue. In fact, I don't even think UR Zazan got up on here. Yeah, dang. Not very high. But you did see Yuna and Sakura being used. I think this is because Yuna is just a famous character that people have. She has a lot of great abilities, but I think Yuna comes in because so many people have 120'd her, and it's very hard to 120 units in this game, and so that's why you see her along with Sakura. They pair up well together. That's why they almost match identically. And then you see Frederica because a lot of class matches have used Frederica, so it's a tried and true practice. Ketone came in because of UR Zazan, and Mont probably because of his Earth element as well. It's hard to say. It might be also due to the fact that he's easy to 120. It's a little difficult to figure out of these top 10 what people used. But it is interesting to see. You might be able to extrapolate more information from this, and you can actually look, and I'll post the link below, about all the units that were used between auto and manual. Now, if you go to actually total element, like what did people use? You'll notice that dark and light were the most used. And that makes sense, because one of the things that is advantageous about dark and light is that they're weak against each other and not weak against anything else. So when you have like wind, they're weak against ice, and it's but not the other way. They're not weak to each other, and so then light and dark can kind of dominate each other, and it just depends on who attacks first, more or less. And so that's why I can see like why they're so dominant, and also maybe it's due to the fact that mastery can be maximized between dark and light. I think those are the two highest that can go up at the moment. Maybe then it's earth. Or it's going to be, I think, ice. I'm not 100% certain. But that would be my guess as to why people use dark and light, is to build up that mastery. And then looking at this, if we look at the third most used, it was Earth. And that kind of makes sense if you think about who you fought anecdotally. You probably fought a lot of ketones and UR Zazans, or some sort of ketone, 2B, something representative of it. What's actually surprising to me here is that given how much people thought Earth was going to be used in this one, there's not a lot of wind units, which is very odd. You see a lot of lightning, and that's because of Frederica. And so it's such an odd representation. So it's interesting. What was the decisions people were making? But that's the only thing I can extrapolate from the total being auto or manual. If you actually go into auto, you see if I come back here, dark was 21, dark was 25. And this is because of Black Rose Helena and Dwayne. That pair works. It just makes sense. Anything interesting here? I guess water was the next higher percentage because of Zazan, regular Zazan. That is it. That is the makeup of auto. I can go and talk to my friend Omni, who does a lot of auto PvP and actually got in the top 100 this time. Basically, he said he pretty much fights mirror matches of Black Rose Helena, Dwayne, and regular Zazan most of the time. And I can totally see that in these percentages. It actually holds. Now, if you go into manual, which things get a little bit more interesting, if we go all the way back to this one where Earth was only 12, in manual, all of a sudden it jumps up an extra 4%, dark goes down quite a bit, light stays strong at 26%. Earth is because UR Zazan is best in manual PvP, hands down. You can, proc his courage and his re-raise, and then he just has so much penetration that if you use him in auto, he may not get to that because of how the AI works. You can actually stand back and, increase those values before going in. And so then why do we see less dark? Like I said before, Black Rose Helena was not as prevalent. Dwayne was still around. That's why you still see it being, the third highest percentage. And then Lightning, obviously, it's Frederica. So we're really seeing kind of a trend here that if I were to go into my last class match in my last video, the trend basically was Lightning was very dominant, and it's still the third highest or fourth highest here. So it makes sense. Like, people tend to use Frederica in almost all these class matches. People tend to use Dwayne in almost all these class matches. And now we see another figurehead, which is either Ketone or UR Zazan being a figurehead in all these manual class matches. And I'm curious to see if it continues. I'm really hoping Wind procs up a lot more due to Tifa, and we will see that hopefully in the next one. That would be my prediction, is that Wind is going to be a larger percentage as well as Ice. But we did see, if we go all the way back, that despite the fact Lightning was a very high percentage, Earth was only, about the same percentage. So if we go here, they're about the same percentage as well. They were not dominant, so they really just increased proportional to saying, hey, I'm either going to counter them or not. Okay. Again, I want to thank you guys who put in their information. Thank you, Wally, who put it in, and he was a newer player, and I really appreciate that. Lego Pants, I think he took the time to grab some other players that he fought against and put in that information. Omni put his. Thank you for the content creators. I know Rindell put it in, and Orange and Diggs did help grab this information. So I really appreciate that. It really helps figure out what class matches were like this time and what the future is going to hold. And actually, I will get into that, is what do I think my predictions are for the next one. So in the next one, we have AoE resistance plus 30 as like the base value. And I can't remember if there was another thing added to it, but I think healing is no longer disabled for this one. And I think we're going to see, just based off of what units came out and that were free, because there's always been tendencies to use free units over others. And I think Tifa is going to be one of those free units that is going to have some dominance in the next one, even though we might have people like Barrett or people like Velric or people like Auron who can, counter her, Sweetheart Celia especially. I think that's going to be one of the main figureheads if people are assuming that Tifa is coming into this. I'm making a bold prediction that Valentine Celia will be a top 5 most used. I think there's been enough time to actually level her up and actually get her into those class matches. The only thing that I think will never change is that light and dark are always going to be the dominant values. I would be very surprised to see in the next one if light and dark are not first and second place. That would be the most surprising thing I could ever see in this to happen. Anyways, thank you for watching this. Again, thank you everyone who helped participate in this. I am Chase vs All. You can find me on Twitch at Chase vs Game. I make videos like this. I really like going into live PvP stuff. So you'll see that a lot of my videos are congruent or very similar to that. And I also love going into analysis. So if you have things that you would be interested in finding out, I am able to find that information. So please go ahead and ask me questions in the comments of things that you want to know, and I can do my best in some future videos to go into it. Anyways, this was Chase vs All. Have a nice rest of your day.